I'm going to call to order this Lacey City Council meeting on December 6, 2018. Can everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we've been distributed the agenda and consent agenda items for this evening. Is there any additions? Can I get a motion?
Move to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved in second to approve tonight's agenda and consent agenda items. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. And we have an agenda. And very first up on our agenda, it's really my honor to bring up the coach of the Northwest Christian Lacey Boys cross country team. Coach Michaels was going to tell you about some of the accomplishments, including the boys team winning state for the 5th time in a row. But I'll turn it over.
Thanks. Well, you said this is a chance to brag on the program, so I'll do that. So yeah, they are a group of guys that come out, they work really hard. You might see them run through here. They
Yes.
leave the school, you probably see them running through here multiple times every week, including today when they had to get chased out of there with a shooter out there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they run a lot, they put in a lot of time and hard work. They do it year round, so they train on the off season when a lot of other kids aren't, and then they reap those rewards, so it's really cool. And they did, at the state this year, they won their 5th state championship in a row at the junior classification. And I think our team has won under 3 different coaches now, Bill Kehoe and then Larry Weber and then me over this whole time period. And I've been at that campus now since 12 years, I think. But we've won every year since 2002, I believe, the league championships and the district championship, both. And then we've had a couple earlier state championships, I think in 11 and 12 we won 2, and then didn't win until the last 5 years. But they've never finished less than 3rd. They've never had a beyond 3rd place. And not to leave the girls team out, so as long as we're talking about the guys,
Please.
the girls too.
Me and Andy know.
That,
Yeah, because we know.
I said
We
the
know
mayor
the
and I
girls-
know because
Yeah,
our
I'm
kids
sure.
went there.
So they had a streak where they won 9 in a row, 9 state championships in a row for
Wow.
a long period of time. And the same thing with the leagues and districts. They've been the dominant team there for a long time. But again, these kids go out, they put the work in, and it's nice to see when they put that kind of work in that they get that kind of payoff. So that's not all of them, but that's a good group of them. And the nice thing is the top 3 runners this year are juniors,
Oh,
which means they get to come back again.
great.
So you guys get a
So-
coin.
Yeah, so we'll have the team come up, and I'm going to hand you a City of Lacey coin, and then you're going to walk by and you're going to shake this, our council's hands here, and our city attorney and our city manager's hands. So come on up. Yes, and we'll get a great picture at the very end.
You can do your 60-minute mile pace on this one.
Job well done.
Great job. Hard work pays off, right? Great job, guys. Good job, champ. Awesome. Good job, buddy.
Thank you.
Proud of you guys. Been doing it for a while. Great job. Great job, coach. Again. Again.
Do you have any other, how many more do you need?
Hey Noah, how many more do you think we need of those coins for the guys who make
How
it?
many other people in the team?
We had 7?
6, 7?
We had 17. How many are here? 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, probably 8.
8. Probably good. I can give them to them.
And there's be one for you there.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
So-
do you want to get a picture? They say.
Yeah, so we'll get a picture real quick in front of the council. Can you get up here?
Yes.
You've seen that before, right?
Do you want to come up here too, Lynn?
They're all taller than I am, so I guess.
Oh, sorry, but go in front.
Yeah, go front.
Good job, gentlemen. When they're behind Chase, they can see his sweatshirt too.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to, thank you so much.
Congrats.
Thank you. Look forward to it. My daughter is going to be a freshman next year, so, and she's runs with the cross country team all the time, so I look forward for them to continue, hopefully their winning ways. So next up on our agenda is public comment not on the agenda, and we do have several people signed up. First is Holly.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Holly Paxton, the manager of the Lacey Timberland Library next door. And I am here tonight to share an exciting upcoming project with our beloved library here in Lacey. Back in 1991, your Lacey Timberland Library was built after years of hard work and fundraising by dedicated library advocates like all of you. Thanks to incredible care by our City of Lacey staff, who are the owners of our facility, our building is in excellent shape for a 27-year-old. But there are a few things we could do in order to improve our services to the community with our facility. That's why I'm here tonight. In this past year, working with our City of Lacey Library Board, our Lacey Library staff, and an architect, we've identified some needs for our library that a modest remodel would meet. With your help, we would be able to replace our tall and somewhat worn-out service desks with barrier-free, all ADA-accessible central service stations. That means no more kids having to stand on tiptoes to get their first library card. Excited about that. Create a new separate and dedicated return area to ensure immediate error-free check-in of all of your materials, which I think we can all agree would be a good thing. Create a first point of contact resource stations out on the floor on either side of our library so community members can get help right where they are right away. And increase your self-checkout stations from 3 to 6, all designed for convenience and accessibility for all of our patrons. This project is scheduled for 2020 with an estimated price tag of $225,000. I am happy to say that we have identified more than 2/3 of that funding already, thanks to support from our Timberland Regional Library Lacey Gift Fund, the City of Lacey, and our Friends of the Lacey Library. But we still need an additional $75,000 to make these improvements a reality and do all the things we'd like to do. You can help us meet this goal by donating to the Friends of the Lacey Library, a 501c3 nonprofit, either by picking up a donation form at the library or visiting the Friends website at laceyfriends.org and donating online. Gifts of $250 or more will be highlighted on our Donor Club plaque at the library, and of course all gifts are tax deductible. In the coming month, we'll be creating a display in the library and sharing more about this exciting project designed to improve access to our services for many years to come. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Holly, and I'm sure you'll have a successful drive. It's a beautiful facility over there. I love the Lacey Library, and it's hard to believe it's been 27 years, too. I remember when it was built. Jeez. So next up is Terry. Please state your full name and keep your comments about 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name's Terry Johnson. I've lived in the city of Lacey for over 20 years. I was here a couple weeks ago and I spoke specifically about a homeless encampment near where I live in the Meridian campus area. And happy to say all that is now gone. So I actually came in here to express my thanks to everybody in this room because I know it was a joint effort between the city council and this local government and city of Lacey Police as well. I actually did about a 2-hour hike through that whole area, and I couldn't find a sign of anything, so that was a job well done. The cleanup crew did a good job. There wasn't literally anything left behind there. All the shrubbery and stuff that they actually had to cut down just to get their machines back there, they cleaned all that up nice, so it was a job well done. You know, I know you folks have a pretty thankless job being on the city council for a pretty measly stipend that you guys accept. And, you know, your hard work and your efforts don't go unnoticed. So in my eyes, everybody does a great job here. You know, we keep a close eye on things from time to time, and I'm just glad to see that this issue for now is gone. And, you know, I know there's still some issues out there, but they're being worked on as well. So I appreciate everybody's efforts in here.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Next up is Jenny. Please state your full name and keep your comments about 3 minutes.
Okay. Jenny Gessler. I am a resident of Lacey in the Hawks Prairie area, and I am here on the same subject. I did not know that development, so thank you for sharing. Our next door neighborhood app site is blowing up with the comments about the homeless encampments and the people in our neighborhood. And I chose to directly email Councilman Stedman and ask, what can I do? Instead of it seems that there are a number of people on there that are concerned and would like to help and not just complain. So that is, and he said, you need to come to a meeting. There was tonight just even a post that said, by an individual that I don't think wants to help, but said the city of Lacey will not listen to us. They are not there to help. And I'm here because I believe differently. I've been in that neighborhood since 2011. It has radically changed. Some of you have seen my face here before when I was here months ago talking about development in our neighborhood, but you know, the development has grown, the woods have shrunk, and maybe that's why we see them more now, because they're area, but I definitely never saw the amount of people that I see now in that neighborhood. I also personally, as a woman, I know it's my job to watch out for myself and look out for my own safety, but I felt comfortable running the streets in the evening, well lit, maybe with pepper spray. That is not something that I would do anymore. Because not only do I feel like now I need to look out for just the normal crazies, I feel like I'm not safe from whatever is lurking in the woods and whoever is living in the woods. From what I understand, it's extremely hard for all of you, for the police, to remove them once they are on private property, even if that is undeveloped private property. So looking for clarification there, and just the concern that Salish Middle School is right there. We have designated trails that are part of that park and that development, and people have been on those and come across homeless people. So it's just not really and I'm not trying to say, not in my neighborhood. I'm not here to say that, right? It happens everywhere. So I'm not saying please remove them and make them someone else's problem. But please let us know what we can do to help, however you can broadcast that to us. I understand on Nextdoor there is another individual who is actually trying to create a group to help and find answers, and may have been in touch with one of you on the city council, but I'm just here to say it is an issue. Awesome that your area has been cleaned up. Thank you for that, but please let us know what we can do. Okay.
Did you give your, do we have all of our information? So,
I left my email and a phone number.
okay, yes, I have it right here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you for
Mr.
coming.
Mayor, if I
Yep,
may.
please.
So, I'm sorry, what was your name? Jenny. So thank you very much for speaking and being here. I know it's all recorded and all good. Tonight on my committee, I'm actually doing a report on a couple of traffic-related solutions that came about from citizens like you that came by and said, hey, we have some issues. In their situation and in my experience on council, it's very helpful to write down the issue too and send it in a letter form. And that way it can be processed and followed, it can go to committee perhaps, but it's helpful, in addition to your testimony tonight, it's helpful to put it in letter form and, details and things like that that can be chewed on, if you will, through the process. So thank you very much, though.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is an issue that, For a long time, especially living in Lacey, and for those of us who've been in Lacey for a long time, we remember a time where you hardly ever saw someone who was homeless in Lacey. You saw a few regulars that been here their entire lives as well, but you didn't see a lot of people coming into Lacey. That has changed, and some of it is because we're developing more, and maybe you're right, we didn't see it as much. But anyone who's been downtown Olympia knows they're having a crisis. I think most populated cities in the western United States are in crisis mode, and there's a lot of reasons why this is happening, and some of them are really big, between the mental health, lack of mental health help that we've gotten from the federal government or the state, and now we have a huge opioid epidemic that is wiping out families, putting people on the streets. And so, when 2/3 of the problems are really big problems that local governments have, I don't know if we'll ever be able to handle. It's scary to be up here and trying to find solutions, but we have a couple of people who've been working very closely as a regional issue on what we can do regionally. This next year, the city of Lacey, in our budget, we're going to be spending more money than we ever have. But it's not just, we're not going to be able to spend our way out of this either. It's going to take our community to come together and understand where everyone's rights are, where everyone's responsibilities are, and what we can do to help. And I think in Lacey, we're going to really focus on some market-based things. We're going to try to have more affordable housing. We're going to look at about doing infill, accessory dwelling units. So there's a lot of things that we're doing along those lines where we're going to try to help from a market side, because that's all, some things that we can do. Of course, we're going to support our nonprofits too, who are on the front lines of this. But I think the community sort of needs to come together and understand this issue a little bit more, because I had a conversation just a couple weeks ago with people who I thought understood the issue and wasn't even close to understanding the rights of individuals who happen to be homeless compared to the rights of people who aren't in that circumstance. And it's really complicated, and it's really complicated to explain it as well. And unless you're living this, unless you really know what's going on, it seems overwhelming. But trust me, this council cares. We understand both sides, and we want to help. We want to do what's right too. We've engaged our faith community. We've been meeting all year with our faith community because they like, what can we do to help? And I think we have some good action items going forward with them as well. And so we're going to continue working on it, and I have a lot of faith in our council who's been working on this issue too. Go ahead.
If I may, could I ask which neighborhood you live in?
Currently, I used to be right next to Salish Middle School for a number of years, and now I am, it's hard to describe, I'm off of Marvin right by the gateway.
Yes. Yeah.
32nd and
Okay. Part of the reason I ask is that I've been approached by some residents of the Jubilee neighborhood, and Councilmember Stedman and I are going to be meeting with them, I hope, next week. Okay. We're trying to land on a date, and
Might be the 12th, I believe, right? Possible.
possibly, yeah. So
be maybe the lady on next door that has somebody that's trying to reach out.
Yeah.
in a constructive way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is only for constructive paths forward.
Well, I mean, I think we just want to hear the concerns and see where, see where we are on this. But to Mayor Ryder's point, I mean, there are limits to what we can do because people do have rights, but we certainly want to look toward solutions and do what we can. And if you would like to be invited to that meeting, I can arrange for that to happen.
I would, yeah.
Okay.
That lady privately, I private messaged her, I can't remember her name.
Leslie, I think, right? Is it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I said, can I please be included in
Okay.
Great. And
Right.
we appreciate it, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It really is going to take this community to come together. First of all, understand the issue, and then understand what we can do, right?
anyone could, this is, you're going to laugh, but can anyone
You know, I think having a facts page is
Yeah.
something, well, no, Rick, I'm looking at you.
Letter?
Look at Rick.
Yes, we could put together collaborate with the police department and Dave to put together a facts page and figure out how to have that information available for when those questions come up. And I think it'd be also good for staff too, just in general, as those questions do come up from time to time.
Thank you, that's a great suggestion. See, we're already further ahead on this. Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. So, is anyone else? Nope, there's no one else in the room. Next item on the agenda is I'm going to open up our final 2018 budget hearing. Troy.
Thank you, Mayor Ryder. Good evening, council. As the mayor said, we've reached the final public hearing on the budget thanks to the hard work of city staff and the guidance and direction from you, the city council. I'll be brief in my comments tonight. We've had plenty of discussion on the budget. So your proposed 2019 budget in total is $142,235,705. This is a decrease of about $712,000. The primary reason for the decrease is completion of one-time capital projects. We have less capital projects in 2019, as well as lower transfers that helped fund those capital projects. And offsetting those decreases are increases to the cost of labor as well as workforce considerations. I would like to give some numbers on the general fund budget. This is the budget that most citizens most closely identify. This provides police services, parks and rec, engineering, streets, administrative services. So again, this is what our citizens most identify with. Your proposed 2019 budget for the general fund is $49,511,784. This is an increase of about $832,000. The primary impact of the general fund are the workforce considerations I mentioned earlier. I would like to make comments on 3 different items, 2 of which came directly from the last hearing. So we did add $5,000 to the city council budget for the youth council, so this will be a new program for next year. We also, I do want to address the public art comments that have been discussed throughout this process. In the past, we had funded this program with a $1 per capita funding source. We did eliminate that in 2009 as the Great Recession took its hold, and this funding had lapsed until 2017, where we actually did fund it through reserves to the $1 per capita. The council has expressed a desire to reinstitute that program. It turns out that this fund is within our building improvement fund. We actually already had about a $50,000 addition to reserves built into that budget, which is about the same amount as the per capita amount. So it's already built into the budget, so that's to say that we will be able to fund that again and for next year. The final comment I have is we found an error in the labor calculation for our regional athletic complex, so that's adding about $49,000 in labor. It's actually a kind of a double impact because this is funded through transfers, so it's actually about a $98,000 total impact. But there's no, this is going to be fully funded, so not an issue. So again, this is the final budget hearing. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to accept any public testimony as well as for the city council to provide any final direction to staff. You are scheduled to adopt the budget at your next meeting on December 20th, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Councilman?
More of a comment than a question.
Sure.
So looking at this again, I'm liking the decrease of $712,112 compared to the amended 2008 budget. That's nice. I'm headed towards approving this budget at the next council meeting with some reservation. I'm a little concerned I'm still concerned about that 1% property tax increase that the council wants to have. from firsthand knowledge, there is a lot of pressure to increase rents next year. And that's going to have a major impact on people with fixed incomes and low income, especially inside of our housing crisis and our homelessness problem. So I'm really concerned about that, and I just would hope that the council might reconsider that 1%. And then in the same vein, I'm all for public art, but it seems like another great opportunity for the private community to step up for that rather than having it be another tax burden, which again makes our most vulnerable citizens more vulnerable.
Is there any other questions, comments? Deputy Mayor.
So I'm really, even though it's not very much, I'm really, really pleased we built in money for a youth council. We've been trying to do this for, gosh, I don't know, 8 years, I think, and I think it's really important to hear from the future generation that is coming forward and living in Lacey of how what they expect from us and get their input. So I think this will be great.
Any other questions? No, I just want to thanks, Troy, to you and your staff and all the great work you guys do. It's a good budget. I'm feeling very good about it. I'm actually really happy that we're bringing back the public art program, and in this case, we're doing it out of reserve, so we're not implementing anything new, Councilmember Hearn. So, but I am very conscious about the increased pressure on those on fixed incomes and what we can do to help them. We do have programs available for if they're a city utility, if they're in a certain circumstance, maybe the utilities committee can take a look at that and see how effective that's going. I'm not on the utilities committee anymore.
Well, as a matter of fact, it was reviewed, and it's a big success. Mm-hmm. It's funded by volunteers that fund that. There was a time where it wasn't funded, so we discussed ways to maybe more advertise that. So, mm-hmm. And Councilmember, former Mayor Clarkson was actually spearheaded that several years ago, and mm-hmm. So that's a good deal, funded by the givers, yes. Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I would just like to real quickly remind the public that tools like this 1% are given to municipalities because revenues from liquor and other miscellaneous stuff are taken away from the city and only given these tools to recoup it. Doesn't even come close to recouping it, by the way. Mm. But in no way, shape, or form is it strictly city's fault. If you use this kind of tool, it's only because the revenues were taken from you to begin with, yeah. And not returned. So.
I know, the property tax is something that we've talked a lot about, and we did have quite a bit of conversations here about going up redoing the 1% this year. What obviously at the end of the day, it's the compounding effect of that, which the Director Wu showed that in 10 years, the dollar amount that we are losing is unbelievable. And this would be different, in my opinion, if we didn't have a 1% cap. If it was, I'd feel a lot better if we didn't have a 1% cap. If it was more closer to inflation, and then some years we could pull it back or whatever. But it being a 1% cap when rest of our expenses are growing, at least 3%. That's really hard. It feels good. This budget feels really good this year because we have these one-time monies coming in from all the commercial growth, all the residential growth. But I was just meeting with some Boy Scouts earlier today, and they said, so what do you do when you run out of land and you can no longer build houses and commercial property? Infill. And yeah, it's infill, it's expensive, and cities are really reliant sometimes on those one-time funds, and they have to last the length of that house there until it gets redeveloped. And that can be 20, 25 years or longer. And so I don't like how our government's funded mostly, but it's what we have, and it's the tools that we have to use. So, but I appreciate your comments. So is there any other comments? One person from the public, do you have anything you want to add?
I'm definitely against raising property.
Nobody can
Okay.
hear you. You wanna hit the mic. You want to hit the mic, it's open.
So I'm going to close this final 2019 budget hearing. So next up on our agenda is the mayor's report. And I'm going to be, I have two recommendations for, they're both reappointments. One's to our Public Facilities District, which is, we have a capital area regional public facilities district that helps look at the two major public facilities that were built from this authorization, which is the Regional Athletic Complex and the Children's Hands-On Museum. Our city representative is up, and we actually have a vacancy, I believe, that I don't think it's been filled. Of course, Scott knows, and he's out of, yeah? It's still open. So we still have a regional representative who needs, so anyone who's listening out there who wants to be a regional representative to our public facilities district, they only meet like, what, once a year annually to go over, you know, the revenues and that come in because of this. And that's a real easy thing, but if you want to, you know, give something back to your community, you care about the regional athletic complex or the Children's Hands-On Museum, please contact the City of Lacey, and I'll love to talk to you about it. But Lacey's representative is Dennis Reed, and so I'm moving that we reappoint Dennis Reed to the Public Facilities District.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much. And next up is to reappoint Ruth Weigelt to the LTAC committee.
So moved.
Second.
So-
Oh, I thought
perfect.
you were making a motion.
Yep, no, that's great. It's moved and seconded.
Perfect.
Obviously, Ruth is absolutely one of our rock stars of Lacey. She is absolutely amazing in every way. Thank you, Ruth, for all you do for our community, and thank you for giving your time back to the LTAC committee. It's been moved and seconded.
You took most of my words. But as chair of that committee, she's phenomenal. She doesn't miss a beat. And she, you know, turns over rocks and comments about everything that you know, she finds stuff. She's just fantastic, and it's just we're really fortunate that she's serving on that board.
Yep, she's great. Councilor Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ruth is a Lacey legend through and through, and every time I see or hear her name, I get a smile on my face. She's everything Lacey, and she's one of the best ambassadors we have. So
Yep.
thank you, Ruth.
For sure.
And she'll let you know when you do it wrong.
Oh, yes.
And she'll call you.
Coffee last
Holds
week.
us accountable, that's for sure.
She has my phone number.
I bet
and
you
she
should
calls
take.
it.
That's great. Yeah, if she thinks you're not doing a good job, she'll let you know. It's been moved and seconded to reappoint Ruth Weigelt to the LTAC committee. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Before I move on from the mayor's report to the city manager's report, you want to go get Scott? He's up next for us. But before I move on to the city manager's report, if our city manager will ever come back,
Well,
we had a quick blast that went out that we had a suspected armed robbery in Lacey. Can you please give us an update on that and where we're at? There was a lot of misinformation that went out right afterwards. Everyone assumed that a shooting had happened, and that's why it was on lockdown. We know now that there wasn't an actual shooting, but can you maybe give a quick update on what happened?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So the incident began over on Slater Canyon Road.
where a vehicle was called in as a suspicious vehicle. Our officers arrived and actually identified the driver of the vehicle. The vehicle then sped off, leaving our officers behind. That vehicle was shortly thereafter involved in a collision going the wrong way on I-5. So Washington State Patrol responded to that. The occupants of the vehicle fled on foot. It was about half an hour, possibly 40 minutes later, that a carjacking was attempted on 3rd Avenue, right across the street here. A fight ensued during that attempted carjacking, and one of the two suspects did fire one round into the ground to break up the fight. It wasn't directed at any person. They then ran off again, attempted another carjacking just across the street from City Hall, which is again unsuccessful, and then they ran off from that area as well. We did a canine track, a rather extensive canine track, I might add, with negative results for the two suspects. We do know who the two suspects are at this time. They've been identified. We're just tracking them down and trying to get them into custody.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that, and that's good information
You
to
saw
know.
that coming down I-5?
Yeah, of course, there was a blast went out from St. Martin's, and they were locked down in place. That was their decision to do that. But there was a lot of people started calling, asking me questions, and so thank you for the update. So that is not quite the end of my mayor's report. I will actually next week we have a meeting, and then our last meeting where we're going to adopt the budget, I'm going to be out of town. And so the deputy mayor is going to have to chair the last meeting of the year. So for everyone else out there, this is the last time you'll see me for the year. So I wish everyone, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hope everyone has a safe, wonderful holiday. And I'll give you a hug later, council member. So next is the city manager's report.
So, Honorable Mayor and City Council, we have two items before you. One is approval of an award bid for College and Yelm Water Improvement Project, and Scott Ager, Public Works Director, will provide that report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Staff recommends award of Lacey contract number PW-2018-25 to low bidder South Sound Contractors from Lacey in the amount of $307,875.47. This work involves the installation of 22 different valves, some 8-inch, some 12-inch, on College Street and Yelm Highway. This work is in preparation for our 2020 large overlay project. We've been calling it the Super T. So we're going to do this utility work this year and then the overlay project the following year. There were 13 bids on this project, which is a large number of bids, which spurs on competition. The work should start by early February, and there are 40 working days included in this bid. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
I'd move to award Lacey contract number PW 2018-25 to low bidder South Sound Contractors from Lacey, Washington, that's awesome, in the amount of $307,875.47.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to award this Lacey contract to the lowest bidder. Any discussion?
Just one quick comment. It's great to see that it's a local Lacey company that got the contract. That's fantastic.
Deputy Mayor?
We don't see that often enough.
Actually, I was going to say the
Same
exact same thing. It's great.
Yeah.
And two were in the bid process. So
Yeah, I saw that.
Out of 10
My only
bidders,
concern
which
is
is great.
that they really underbid themselves by $81,000. But I'm glad they're here and going to do. I'm sure they're doing good work. Have we done work with them before?
Yes, we have.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, that's wonderful then. So it's been moved and seconded. We've had some discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
So the other item is an interlocal agreement regarding the provision of specialized recreation services. I just want to point out in your packet, it included the committee staff report. So we printed out one for the city council meeting. So that's why you have a paper version of that. And I'll hand this over to Jennifer Burbidge, our Parks Director.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Ryder and members of the council. Before you tonight is the interlocal agreement, and like City Manager said, for some reason the packet on the website wasn't updated, so I did hand out the hard copies, and attached in there, you have the interlocal agreement, and then also the specialized recreation brochure, just for your reference and information. The recommendation tonight is to approve this agreement with Thurston County and authorize the city manager to sign this agreement. The funding is in the amount of $8,377 per year for 2018, 2019, and 2020. A little bit of background. The Thurston County Specialized Recreation Program has been offered under this model partnership since the early 1990s. The recreation programs are for persons with developmental or physical disabilities, with contribution of funds from the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. The agreement would be good for a period of 3 years, so this is the first time that we've done a 3-year contract, and that's why it's coming before you tonight rather than going directly to the city manager, just because it's different. We felt it was different enough that it should be reviewed by you. And of course, it's contingent on city council's passing of the budget each year. This collaboration has served our residents very well. It's to our collective benefit to continue this partnership and provide these services. They are highly valued and regarded. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Move to approve interlocal agreement with Thurston County regarding the provision of specialized recreation services and authorize the city manager to sign agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the city manager to sign this agreement. Discussion. Deputy Mayor.
Just very small question. What was changed from, was it just the fact that it was a 3-year agreement as opposed to a 1-year? Is that the difference?
Correct. The annual price is, the funding amount is the same. It's just that the contract is for 3 years.
And that didn't get on the website as or document on our web as 3 years?
Our document did get on the web as 3 years, but it was the staff report from the Community Relations Committee, which met this past Monday, the 3rd.
Okay.
And then, so the updated version of the staff report didn't get onto the website. But the 3-year indication was in the staff report. It's essentially the same staff report.
That's what I thought, because I just wanted to clarify which was which. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? I have a quick question. Do you know how many people this program serves?
I tried to get that information for tonight, but I'd be happy to share that at the next Community Relations Committee meeting, which will make its way here.
Perfect.
In a report form, so.
I appreciate that.
No
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's very well attended program.
Yes.
So it's I've been moved and seconded to have the city manager sign this interlocal agreement for specialized recreation services. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Is that it?
Thank you.
That is all.
Do you want to report out on our new chief of police?
I'd be glad to. You may have seen that there was an announcement also in the paper that Ken Semko from Santa Monica Police Department has accepted the city's offer. 27 years experience in law enforcement, comes highly qualified. I think he was very well received by our extensive interview process, which included a community panel, a police department panel. The executive team was kind enough to help out. And then I also had a separate panel plus the community reception. I could tell you Ken is very excited to come. He has, believe it or not, some family that is attending Oregon State University and also Boise State, so he actually had long-term plans to move to the Northwest. This is just going to accelerate those plans. So we expect, assuming all the preconditions of employment go swimmingly, is what I told him on the phone, February 11th is when we expect Ken.
Okay. Thank you. So next up is our standing. Yeah.
Do we have to call him Dr. Chief or Chief Doctor?
Does he have a
It's a
doctorate?
doctorate, right?
I mean, just a master's,
Oh, master's.
just like your city manager.
Nice plug.
So next up is our standing general committees. Our utilities committee. Councilmember Young?
So I'll take the
Oh,
report
yeah.
as Councilmember Young was excused. The Utilities Committee met on November 5th, and we took a field trip in a city vehicle to a tour of well source 15 and 16 at 8905 48th Way Northeast and Lift Station 2 on Westlake Drive. But I asked ahead, and I'm going to defer over to Director, Public Works, Scott Egger, to let us all know what we all saw.
I have some exciting facts for you here. So Lift Station 2 is over on Westlake Drive. We began that project last year, replacing the oldest lift station in Lacey. It was originally built in 1970. And the existing lift station is located in the roadway underneath power lines. It's in a very, very poor location in terms of maintenance and getting equipment in. So we, as you all know, we purchased a home and are relocating the lift station. We've installed almost a mile of pipeline, split almost evenly between force main and gravity main, and the deep wet well has been installed there now. So the pipeline work, the road work is complete, other than a final lift of asphalt. But work on the lift station itself is the main focus right now. The wells that were toured, 15, 16, are out on 48th Way in Beechcrest. And that project we've spent about $300,000 on so far in terms of consultant work and then drilling a new well. There are 2 wells there. We're going to retain one and replace one. So the drilling is complete, but there is some major work ahead, about $5 million worth of work. They're going to be designing a treatment facility and a well house this coming year, and then that will be installed in 2020, 2021. So the depth, that's fairly shallow, those wells, compared to some that we have. Those are only about 140 feet deep, compared to the wells over near Councilman Stedman, which are over 600 feet deep.
Wow.
So anyway, let's see, the casing that was drilled was 20-inch diameter, and the existing one is 10-inch diameter, one is 12-inch, so this is larger. And part of the issue there is we've had somewhat declining returns, and we've rehabbed the wells, but we want to be able to pump the full water right that we're entitled to, so that's part of the reason for the project.
Well, I would concur, and thank you for making it so I gave such a great report. We enjoyed that field trip, and thank you for putting the notes in order for us on that. Very well
Happy
done.
to do it.
Yeah, I was part of that tour too, and it's really great to see hands-on the work being done in regards to public works in general, because that's our biggest, not liability, but our biggest price tag on most things and infrastructure-wise. But I'm also, I was born in 1970, the same time this well was commissioned.
Boy, that's really old.
Yeah.
Replacement time.
And, they told us on the tour about the gentleman who drilled this new well, and that it was his last job. And then none of his grandkids or kids want to take over the work. So it's really a dying art form. His rigs were probably close to my age as well, and hand crank levers, the whole deal. And I wish I could have seen him actually work that, because that would have been fascinating with the mechanical background that I have. But other than that, it was great. I encourage other council members to get out, see public works that's in motion, if you will. The men and women are working out there, and see every day what they do to raise the quality of life for all their citizens, because it's amazing what they do, and the dollar amount of infrastructure that they take care of, so there's no huge problems that we have to face. So
Thank you for that. And yeah, we have the best employees, the best people working for us, so keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I would just say that 1970 seems very youthful.
Next up is our Transportation Committee, Councilmember Hearn.
Don't forget, the older we get, the better we were. So I have the privilege of reporting on transportation, which met on November 6th, 2018. And first report offered was about the State of the Street report. I always like that report. It's like State of the Union, but State of the Street. As usual, the report was positive. Factoid, there are 166.2 centerline miles of asphalt pavement in Lacey. And we do have a staff that walks that every year to help take this index for us. And the results were that our pavement condition index, PCI, that's for reals, is 83.8. And that's good. That means that over 97% of all the streets in Lacey were rated as either good or in very good condition. So that takes a lot of work, attention, time, and the right amount of money to take care of. The next report came about from a Lebanon Street traffic calming situation. A homeowners association representative came by traffic committee some time ago and reported of some concerns about Lebanon Street traffic and that they were experiencing. And they requested the installation of some speed bumps, and they hoped that it would deter the drivers. The speed bumps could be removed in a year, but at this time, the homeowners association have yet to meet a 60% survey criteria to move forward with their request. So they came by to tell us what their position is, but if they can't get that 60% criteria, then they're stalemated there. So we hope that they resolve their issues there as an association. Next report, Rainier Loop restriping. Also a result of a citizen report. As I said, I was going to be presenting a couple of them tonight. Their HOA association at Rainier Loop, they also had some concerns about speed and whatnot, and also access to the grocery store from their neighborhood regarding an ADA ramp. And as a result of that citizen report, and they had like a easel and a point. Do they have a pointer? I don't know. They had a finger, but at least, but you know, they were ready, and it was good to see and really helped. And so the crosswalk and the ADA ramp will be installed within the next few months. But the big deal on this is the restriping. Martin Hoppy was in the meeting originally, and he immediately noticed that that place needed restriping, and that was put into motion right away, and that's how I can report it was completed. And that restriping of parking spaces and whatnot instantly reduces traffic speed, because when the stripes are fresh and bright and white, people slow down. So that was a solution that the staff noticed right on the spot and was able to help the situation even before the crosswalk and the ramp were installed. So that's good news. Next report was about Ruddle Road retaining walls. The improvement design for the retaining walls on Ruddle Road and 27th along with the appraisal are now complete. And those retaining walls will look similar to the same bricking that you find on Carpenter Road Bridge. Very nice. And it'll also kind of be complementary matching, so when you're driving that part of town, you'll notice that it's kind of a style that we're adopting on those kind of retaining walls, and it looks good.
Nice.
Plus they work well. Horizon Point traffic calming. I guess this is a third report from citizens that came about and said that they were in Horizon Point were concerned about speeding in the area. At this meeting, staff and law enforcement, particularly a traffic officer, came by and they did a test, and the results of the tests were inconclusive that there was speeding. So they're going to follow up with the citizen, but they noticed that any kind of incidents were actually they were concerned about out neighborhood speeding in particular, and any kind of issues were from in community. So they really didn't notice much. And from my experience, too, sometimes citizens in a neighborhood are very concerned about speeding. When they go in and test it, they find out that actually it's an acceleration problem. Because if you're leaving home and you need to get there, You hit the gas and you go from 0 to 25, in a couple seconds, especially if you have a good engine. And it seems like speeding, but it's really acceleration. And there's really no laws against acceleration, but probably shouldn't do that in neighborhood either because, your attention span, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So it's not technically speeding, it's acceleration. They didn't find any speeding issues there. They didn't find any outside of neighborhood speeding issues there. So staff will be back in touch with those citizens to speak with them about that. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Now we're on to boards, committee reports. I'm up first, but I do not have any reports. The mayor's forum does meet tomorrow. I have taken part on talking about the Thurston County Shared Legislative Committee. I haven't actually met with Thurston County, but I have been up on the Hill already to testify on, we testified was it on Tuesday in front of a House committee, House Government Committee, to talk about our issues, the Growth Management Act, and the fact that we're going to be introducing legislation again to help deal with our islands, the islands within Lacey, and we talked quite a bit about that, and we used a couple of different examples actually of some issues that we're facing with GMA and how difficult it is to actually annex. And a lot of this comes down to a funding concern between cities and counties, and so we're cognizant of that, and there was representatives from Thurston County there, and they're actually very supportive, actually talking to them after the meeting this time around to really understand the issues that we're going through. And I think what we just need to continue to work on is a good annexation, agreed annexation report that we can work with an annexation, for future annexations. So we have an old one that is currently sort of maybe a little out of date or needs to be updated. The county commissioners and maybe this council needs to be updated a little bit on, and maybe we can come to help things going forward. But that was the first committee I talked in front of, and the next committee was a committee on housing and homelessness. As we pointed out again, they want to know some cities' perspectives, and Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater was actually representative and on that committee, and so we talked about some of our. We heard some of the issues going on, and we talked about the possibility of using reserves for low-income housing, and I brought that up to them, and there was actually quite a bit of support around the table for that. So it's that time of year where it's going to be a busy next session. It's a long session, and obviously with us being located right here in Lacey, sometimes we get called upon to go testify, and it's already starting up. So that is my report. Next up is the Deputy Mayor.
So the Joint Animal Services Commission met just before council tonight. They had a hearing on the budget. The budget has a COLA factored in tentatively. It has not been finalized, but the assumption is it will be pre-approved. Later on in the after the hearing closed and later on farther down in the agenda, we actually approved the budget with that pre-budget COLA built into it at the discretion of having to change it if we needed to. And then we also talked about the meeting date and time. Thursdays at 5:30 are difficult for a number of us, certainly me, but also for our Olympia representative. And so it's tentatively going to be on the fourth Wednesday around 5:30. But we need to check with a couple others, including another veterinarian that helps with a staff on stuff. And if that doesn't work, we'll fall back at the same time, which is 5:30 on Thursday. Current reserves we talked about as of 12/31 this year is $1,539,200, which is obviously a healthy reserve. And can we lower the reserve balance? We can do that after our staff kind of looked into it with Troy, and it's usually done at the end of the year. And we talked about having a buffer from a reserve when there was a recession, which kind of like a stabilization fund and using some of that reserve money to put in case we need to, we have a recession again or whatever, and would have a little bit more money to work with. But we're going to do some more investigating of that and find out what percentage we could use, and staff said they'll check with the Olympian Tumwater and AWC, which has recommended something like that. And we'll do this for discussion for next meeting. And then the other question that came up earlier that was answered is, can we use the reserve for capital projects? And then yes, as long as we keep our 2-month reserve in there. HR representatives are on search for a new executive director. Remember that one of the staff is our interim director right now, but she has she's manager of the JazzCom, so that she's kind of doing double duty there. The announcement will be put out in January and open for 3 to 4 weeks is the goal, and then hopefully hiring by the 1st of spring. And our HR, and remember, it's our HR representatives from Lacey that's handling this, because we actually staff JazzCom as far as a backup.
Is that the person you're going to hire, Scott? Or is it, who hires that person?
The city, last time we used JazzCom extensively to kind of make a final recommendation, but technically it's a administrative decision on behalf of the jurisdictions.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're doing a regional approach for the outreach, and, Washington, Oregon mainly. And so hopefully we have someone in place the 1st of spring. And let's see, the field service officer gave us some updates of cases that she's working on. For instance, there was a breeder hoarder. The dogs were running loose that she had. There was 10 or 11 of them, and they were killing other pets. So, and she didn't show up for the court hearing. Unfortunately, she committed suicide. So all the dogs are now under Jazz at the Animal Services Center. And the dogs aren't dangerous, but so they're trying to make sure they find places for them to go. There was a juvenile case that was killing kittens and torturing them, and had 2 felony counts. And this was a rather horrible case of sexual trauma to the dogs. But that's waiting trial. And then there was another one that's has been tried, and they're just waiting for sentencing, and with a lifetime ban on interaction with animals. The cat killer case is still is an ongoing case, and they're thinking it might resurface, but so they're really making sure that they are looking closely at it. And we've hired 2 new officers, field service officers, and they're working out really well. And then our online licensing update is, website is almost done, and we think it'll be open for use soon to use online licensing. And Apparently there was a Santa Paws event at the Joint Animal Services Center this Saturday, which I was out of town, so I didn't go to. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Young.
Hi, I apologize because I have a cold and I can't breathe. But I just have Thirst and Thrives to report on tonight. We met on November 19th at the EDC, Center for Business and Innovation, which is where Thirst and Thrives meets now. Very convenient for me. So in Crosby Carter's report, she's the director of Thirst and Thrives, she told us that the City of Olympia has asked Thirst and Thrives to help promote and recruit volunteers and engage the community around their homeless point in time count, which is going to be January 24th. And Thirst and Thrives is hosting on their website the volunteer form for the point in time count and some marketing materials on their website as well. Crosby has asked the cities of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater to contribute financially to Thirst and Thrives, just in general, to help provide staffing for the action teams. And I think that was we had a work session where that was brought up, and we hadn't quite made up our mind about what we wanted to do. She was just letting the Thirst and Thrives know that she's been asking. Crosby is also looking into other communities' collective impact initiatives similar to Thirst and Thrives for best practices and to see what other kind of resources we might be able to utilize to streamline Thirst and Thrives. A couple of these examples are Kitsap Strong and Priority Spokane. They seem to have a lot of their kinks worked out already. Crosby is also looking at various possible funding models for Thirst and Thrives. And she said that Thirst and Thrives will be convening a conversation between the cities and the county to talk about funding opportunities going forward. And then we'll be having a goal setting session in January, and this month in December, more of like a celebration and kind of a social hour just to talk about how far Thirst and Thrives has come and where we're going. So that's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Greenstein.
Both Emergency Medical Services and TCOM will meet next week, so I will have reports at the next meeting.
Councilmember Hearn.
No further report. Thurston County Coalition Against Trafficking meets next week.
Councilmember Stedman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lacey South Sound Chamber had their Compassionate Community Forum on Wednesday from 11:30 to 1:15 at St. Martin's. It was the Compassionate Community Forum, like I mentioned. They have a program, I guess you'd call it, 100,000 acts of compassion for the community, and you could go on the website of North Thurston Public Schools. I believe it's even on Lacey's South Sound Chamber's website. But you can report acts of compassion, just random acts of being a good neighbor or a good person to another person or someone else. And it's really cool. They're up to nearly 31,000 acts of compassion already. I believe this is the kind of thing that brings a city together, people that wouldn't normally celebrate, holding the door for somebody or helping somebody up after they fall, or, just little things of kindness and, compassion. So it's really cool. Something great about this community. It says a lot about the people in our town, and I think it's something we could be very proud of also. Just touching base, it's not really part of my report, but the chamber was heavily involved in Lacey's the Parade of Lights. Several chamber members were in the parade. John Pizarro from Genuine Auto Glass. Myself, I was with Digger and what's the other pocket gopher's name? Digger and Nutmeg. Yeah. There we go. Yes. How can I forget Nutmeg? He's like everybody, the streets were lined with thousands of people, and they're all nude Nutmeg. It was Nutmeg, yeah. They're taking pictures and stuff. We're in the back of my truck, and it was really cool. Another great community event that brings people together and bridges gaps that would normally probably be there if you didn't interact like that. So that was really great and enjoyed it. And on December 11th, the chamber's having an ugly sweater contest, and I know the mayor's really competitive when it comes to that. And
I have a bunch of ugly sweaters for sure.
And that's going to be on December 11th at Top Run Brewery, of all places, another community gathering place. If you haven't been there, great to check out. And that's me and Jenny's neck of the woods where we live, and great people that run that. And it's from 5 to 7. And that is my report.
Can I quickly ask, point out something? You reported on the compassionate community. I do know that North Thurston Public Schools is desperately needing socks, underwear, and coats, but socks, at least for a while at Fred Meyer's, was discounted, and you would, if you pick some up, you can drop them off at, it's right by the Raj Manhas Center on Slater Kinney. It's just past that, and they could use
You're on
those.
the North Thurston Foundation, right?
I was, I'm no longer, but I still participate when I can.
Awesome.
So
I
just,
didn't know that, so that's great information.
yeah.
Perfect. And thank you for that information, Deputy Mayor. And our last report for Councilmember Cox.
Intercity Transit Authority met last night, and to preface the actions, since passage of the sales tax increase, now the staff is going, oh my gosh, now we have to carry this out. So we're going on a shopping spree, and we're buying 11 replacement buses and up to 15 expansion buses. These will be 35 to 40-foot diesel low-floor buses. Part of the reason, obviously, replacement is buses wear out and we have to get new ones, but in order to start having more frequency on the routes, and that's supposed to be starting in March, faster service between here in Olympia and others, they need more buses to make that happen. So those are, and the other piece about this is that it takes anywhere from 1 to 2 years, typically 18 months, from the time you place an order to the time you can get your bus delivered, because they do not build buses on spec. They're very expensive vehicles. And there were a number of similar transit ballot issues that were passed around the country. So this Gillig firm that we're using is getting like tons of orders. And so we're hurrying to try to get as close to the front of the line as we can.
Wow. So are we expecting not to see a bus for that long then? What was the Intercity Transit going to do in the meantime?
Just
Higher.
Well,
what,
we don't have
I
the
mean,
buses.
we have to try to meet the increasing service with the existing fleet right now. And as new buses come in, we'll do the expansion of services. I mean, we're not looking to get between here and March, get new buses for that. We're looking at the buses we'll need to extend service out into Northeast Lacey, for example, adding new routes and that sort of thing. So,
okay, thank you.
yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear on that. The other purchases, we were able to get 20 new 7-passenger Toyota Sienna minivans for $629,780, which seems like a real deal. Also purchasing 7 more Dilalift vehicles. And other 2 actions that we took last night were we formally adopted the 2019-2024 strategic plan. And on a kind of a sad note, we bid farewell to County Commissioner Bud Blake, who has served on the Transit Authority Board since January 2015. So it was a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
That's my report.
Thank you.
Question.
Sure.
Do you anticipate how many jobs the passage of Prop 1 is?
Are you going to have to hire more people?
Have to.
They will.
Do they have an estimated amount of how, I mean, because being a business owner and chamber board member, creation of jobs is huge, and people that voted for this, you know, it would be great to report out how many jobs would be created over this.
I think, you know, over time, it's going to.
It's going to take time, I
be
know.
gradual,
Yeah.
but I do know.
You
that
don't hire people overnight either. There's hiring process
They
and stuff.
reported that they're looking to get the next, they have several classes a year of training for new drivers, and I think their goal is to, for the next class is to recruit 20
Sweet.
drivers, so.
Sweet.
Wow.
And some of that is gonna
20
be
jobs.
attrition, it'll replace through
Mhm.
attrition and that sort of thing, but I think it's also expansion, so.
Nice.
Well, we've reached the end of our agenda. I know it's going to be really cold tonight. I think it's supposed to get down to 25, 23, 25 degrees. Does Public Works treat the roads when it gets this cold, or does there have to be precipitation? How's that work?
Yeah, it depends on the predicted humidity, you know, because you can have cold days and not frost. So, yeah, you've probably seen the lines down where we've been putting de-icer down.
Yeah.
Because of the, you know, the forecast in terms of the amount of humidity. So to answer your question, yes, we have.
Yeah, I've seen some out there, and I just didn't know how you guys figure out when you do it or when you don't do it. So
A touch base on that real quick also, Scott. Isn't it, you know, I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure with the chemical is put on the road to keep frost from, or ice from building up and prevent accidents. Isn't it important to, you know, wash underneath your car occasionally or anything? Like, have you heard anything about that?
what is
I
it
don't know,
corrosive?
and that's why I asked, but because some people brought it up to my attention, so.
Yes, and there's a car wash I could recommend. No, yeah, I mean, you know, it's always beneficial to keep your car clean, and so.
Do we use corrosive material though?
We use, like, you know, calcium chlorides, which sodium chlorides will, you know, sodium chlorides will attack metals, mags and calciums will attack aluminums. So, yeah, but the reason for going with the mags and the calciums is that they work better at lower temperatures.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, yeah, we
Well, appreciate that. Keep doing the good work out there.
It's better than slipping on ice and having to take your car to a body shop.
That's very true. We've reached the end of our agenda. Like I said, I won't see you guys till the next year. So I hope everyone has a happy new year. And as always, you keep it classy, Lacey. I'll call this meeting adjourned.